want to miss a thing. Listen, as you've heard from some dynamic speakers this morning, from the state legislator. You heard from our district attorney's office. You're hearing some phenomenal things, and we want to keep this going. So now I'm excited to actually bring back Kiera Bradford Gray. Kiera Bradford Gray is a partner of Montgomery Kraken, and she's going to lead a panel with some phenomenal leaders that are doing work on the ground. And Kiera, I'm not going to steal your thunder. I will just give kind of names really quickly. Reverend Dr. Michelle Ann Simmons, founder and CEO of Why Not Prosper. Reuben Jones, director of Frontline Dads. Hassan Bennett, bail navigator at Defenders, and a good friend as well. Again, one of those friends that, just again, compulsory, just like Kiera talked about, right? So one of those friends, and another friend that's compulsory as well, Ricky Duncan, director of New Options, More Opportunities, NOMO, who's doing phenomenal work in both North and South Philadelphia. So without further ado, Kiera, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Atif. And I have to say, all of these panelists are my compulsory friends, because I'm telling you, they are some phenomenal people, but they are very spiritual in nature. They see the humanity in people, and they have been just called to step into the fray with no extra resources. This is what they are called to do. And so this is why I'm so glad that we're shining a spotlight on what they've been able to achieve. Before I discuss what this panel is, I just want to say this quickly. We have talked about a lot, bail versus no bail, no cash bail systems. And, everyone has been rooting on a policy to fix our problems on the front end of our system. But what we found is that when you engage community in such a way and learn from them, the opportunities that they have to start working with people and then bring that into the fold, things start to change, people start to catch on, and great things start to happen. So this next panel is called our pre-entry experts. And pre-entry is not what it sounds. Unfortunately, people did have contact with the police and did enter the justice system. But instead of allowing them to languish and sit in jail until we figure out whether they did something, whether they not, what they need, who they are, because that's generally how the system works. And that's months down the line. While we made people more desperate, we have empaneled and empowered our justice system to be more creative on the front end and start to connect people who did not need to sit in jail on low-level cash bail, providing an alternative to cash bail for certain people. And we did it with the understanding that community supports are really an answer to some of the social issues that we're dealing with in our system, that our system, and I'll use Mike Lee's, that our criminal legal system just can't handle. So I am so happy to introduce, again, Reverend Michelle Simmons. We all should know her. If we don't, we better Google her. She's been doing some tremendous work with women who have been involved in the justice system. Hassan Bennett, who is one of my heroes. I have so much respect and admiration for what Hassan's plight has been, and the fact that he's not bitter about it. He's just empowered behind it. Another one of my friends that have been on the front line, and ironically, it is within his title, Reuben Jones, Frontline Dads. I met Reuben Jones in Montgomery County in 2012, and he was moving there and still going now. And Ricky Duncan, who I have a lot of respect for in terms of what they do for NOMO. So thank you and welcome to everyone. I'm going to start with just asking you briefly to just identify the role you play in what we call pre-entry. So I'm going to just start with you, Reverend Michelle. You have been involved in the justice system at a number of levels and a number of things. You are part of the Judicial Community Advisory Commission, which you get to see up close and personal, how we think and where the gaps are. So can you tell us why, one, you want to be a part of pre-entry, and two, what your role is?
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of the panel. And Carrie, I love you, and to all my other co-panelists, good morning. So your question is like, what caused me to want to be involved? Number one, I'm formally, impacted. And so I see firsthand the barriers. I see firsthand the discrimination. I see firsthand the potential for growth even, right? The potential for change. So that keeps me like on the front line, advocating for change and being part of the fight. And the second part of the question is, what have I been able to do since pre-entry? And so one of the things I found is that community support for people involved in the system is super duper helpful. And secondly, I feel like when we galvanize and work in a collaboration opposed to silos, we get a lot done. So what I've done so far is try to fill the gap as it relates to housing. So when a woman is locked up and getting ready to go to court or just got bail and they want to know, well, what's her plan? Where is she going to go? Who's going to support her? You could put Why Not Prosper down, right? And Why Not Prosper has been there filling the gap as much as we can, even so much so when the governor made the mandate and you worked so hard, Kara, to get, those jails empty. We stood on State Road in the rain, right? Waiting for them women to be released and making sure they had a ride somewhere, right? And so these have been some of the ways, I make sure they got their ID and birth certificate. These are really ground level things that people think that everybody got, but for this population, sometimes it's really, really hard for them to get the things they need even to get started. So that's how I've been able to fill the gap and jump in as a teammate on this pre-entry initiative.
Thank you for that. And I think this is so important. What the things that you said, I think people take for granted that the system already does those things for people. When they release them or don't release them, I think they believe it's because they understand that there's no alternatives for them. But what you're saying is that what I've seen as a lawyer is that when someone doesn't have a home to go to, it's hard for a judge to say, I'm going to release you. So you providing that stability is helping people become releasable into communities and allowing them to work with you. So thank you so much, Reverend Michelle, for what you do in that space. I want to go, Hassan, I'm going to come to you last because this is, the insight that you have is going to be so interesting. I want to move to Ruben Jones, Frontline Dads. And Ruben, I'm not sure, I didn't see you. Yes, I see you now. Ruben, you've played a tremendous role in just justice system involved youth, justice system involved people, and you've always kind of looked at your role in the space of reentry and helping people after they've gotten the conviction, after they've suffered the pain of sitting in jail, sometimes years on end, maybe without even getting the conviction. How do you see and why do you see the need for pre-entry focusing on the front end, and what do you do and provide in that space?
Thank you for having me, Karen. Thank you for the introduction. I think for me, one of the big things I preach is that the whole cycle of mass incarceration is connected, whether it's pretrial or whether it's conviction or whether it's on appeal. Once you're in this system, it's like a lifelong scar. So one of the things that we have done is going back to 2012-13 when the city first wanted to build a new jail and purchase land to build a new jail. We were part of a group that opposed that, which ended up, we won, we stopped them, and then we transformed that into ending cash bail. The city applied for the MacArthur grant to reduce the jail population. We wanted community involvement with that. So we kind of pressed the issue for them to create the CAC. Beyond that, we opposed the use of, the electronic monitoring and the risk assessment tools. So all those are pieces. Right now, we're opposing this probation bill, SB 913, which is super harmful. So all those pieces are connected in a way that once people, for instance, that the longer you sit in jail, the greater chance you have of being convicted. So if folks got a $1 bail and they can't pay it, that means they're going to sit there for the duration of the trial, right? And we know in Philadelphia, that means probably around 2 years or so. I think that's a travesty to have people separate from their families and their communities for length of time, only for sometimes the charge to be dropped or for them to be found not guilty. Yeah. So our focus is on pretrial, and we are a part of the Pre-Entry Coalition, which is a group of organized and nonprofits that lend their resources, service, and expertise to the defendant's office at that critical juncture. Folks being arrested and not being deprived of life and liberty from their families, separation from their families. In addition to that, we were also one of the co-founders of the original Community Bail Fund in Philadelphia. So that means community folks raising money to post bail for folks that can afford to post bail so that they wouldn't be sitting in jail, incarcerated. So all those things we think the collateral consequences of pretrial detention, it's so, tragic when it's, inflicted on folks of color, because 90% of people in the county jail in Philadelphia are people of color. And we think that that disparity contributes to the carceral system and the whole industry of mass incarceration. So we do everything we can to help prevent that.
You said some great things, and thank you for saying that. Ruben, you've been directly involved and impactful in policy, but also when you say the collateral consequences of pretrial incarceration, because I think many people think pretrial incarceration is necessary. And what you guys have been doing is showing people that it's not necessary to keep communities safe. It's necessary when you have facts and information that are presented that this person it causes a danger to the community. But in many cases, those things are never presented, and we just go based on bias-based assumption. And it usually does not work out for people of color when you accumulate all of those assumptions together. So thank you for really talking about the collateral consequences of pretrial detention. It's not just a conviction, but it's the damage that we do on the front end that we need to be more careful. I want to go to you, Ricky, because you are a part of NOMO Foundation, who is a friend to the Defender Association, and working together and collaborating with opportunities and options for release for people who should be and could be released safely into the community while they're awaiting their day in court. Because we have to remember, these people have never been convicted, just accused. And many times people of color and people who are not wealthy, they get accused, and it doesn't take a lot to then start the process against them. You see a lot of people who, they do an investigation and they take their time. Well, that's not how it happens generally for the people that are represented by the Defender Association. And so, Ricky, can you tell us, what your role in pre-entry has been, and what services have you provided, and what you've seen as a result of being involved in it?
Thank you, Karen. Thank y'all for having me. I believe, like I said, I had that lived experience. So I was one of the people that had the misfortune. I happened to get my experience from going through the criminal system myself, and having the experience of being incarcerated at a young age, such as 17, and not being charged with a murder at the time. But the system feels though that it was okay to take a young man and just put him in a prison with adult prisoners. So my take on all this, I believe in early initiative, intervention, prevention. So our take is, we're starting from a young age to the ultimate goal is to end this school to prison pipeline, because this is how they are cycling through. So we have a restorative justice department inside of the NOMO Foundation called RIPS, Restorative Intervention Prevention Services. But the ultimate goal is to rip that school, the prison pipeline out the wall. And through partnerships that we try to develop to make sure that we can ensure that we're partnered up with the DA office diversion program when we're able to go up to the Youth Study Center, which is called the Juvenile Justice Center now. Yeah, which is called the Juvenile Justice Center now. We can go up to the police station, try to intervene before a young person gets put in the system, and that gets that out the way. We're also partnered up with the Emerge campaign with the DA office, where there's another diversionary program to try to nip it in the bud, before it grow. And with each time that you go into the system, it's like you're planting a seed, and it just grows. It grows. It grows. It grows. Mm-hmm. So we want to rip those roots out so you don't get a chance to be planted into the system and stuck sometimes. And becomes like a wildfire. So we're also partnered up with great organizations like the Moral Arts, Restorative Justice Department, the Guild program, where we're taking young people and giving them earn and learn wages, whereas though we're trying to get them a cognitive thinking, changing their way of thinking to the point that they're seeing it from a different perspective, and just showing them a new way of life. Because I believe that the hardest thing to hit Philadelphia never was COVID. It was generational curse. It was, so our ultimate goal is to try to eliminate that and not reinvent the wheel, but help recreate the wheel. So that's our perspective on that. And again, we're trying to start from a young age, serving young people from the age of 11 to 26.
Yeah, Ricky, thank you so much for saying that. And I'm sorry, I'm providing commentary in between, but this stuff is so powerful, and it really, really speaks volumes to the things that need to happen in our system. We need to limit the imprint of the system on some of our children, because there are so many better alternatives that people in the community can put hands on them, understand them, and redirect their behaviors, redirect their understanding of who they should be and how they should be good citizens. in our communities that are so better served than what we see in the justice system's practices. And so when we at the Defender Association, we looked, and most of the kids in our system were Black and brown kids. I shouldn't say most, all of the youth in our system were Black and brown kids. And unfortunately, they didn't get the alternative to go, to a therapist or go to the synagogue or go to somewhere to deal with the troublesome behavior. They got the justice route, which stigmatizes them. So I'm glad you guys are stepping in. Now, coming full circle, and I think Reuben Jones said something that when you're incarcerated, you're more than likely to be found guilty. What I've seen is that when people are incarcerated, especially for things that they may not feel like they didn't commit, and they may be looking at how much exposure they have to be sitting in this jail for long lengths of time, they are more inclined to plead guilty. And now we have a person here that felt the pressure of pleading guilty, that was not given an opportunity to be bailed, despite everything in his background saying he was not a dangerous person, and these charges may not be accurately placed against him, but he stood his ground for years. And I had the honor of working with him. And Hassan Bennett, one, can you just tell us what you do in this space, as in this pre-entry space, but also why it was so important for you to do this, knowing what you did and what you dealt with the system? You're muted. That's the line of the century. You're still muted. Oh, there you go.
I'm a client advocate and bail navigator for the Defenders Association of Philadelphia. So in being a client advocate and bail navigator, after the person is arrested, with all the pressure and all the anxiety from initial arrest, he goes and sees the magistrate judge. Once he sees the magistrate judge, if the magistrate judge doesn't release him, or if he can't afford bail, he is then placed under pretrial incarceration. It is my job to connect with that client. It is my obligation, I reply. It's my obligation to connect with that client, inform that client of his basic rights, inform that client of where he's going as far as the system, the process of the criminal justice system is, and connect with that client in a way to where he can open up with me. People can open up with me. People can tell me, how can I make your life better? This is why I'm here to see you. I do not want to be seen as his authority. I do not want to be seen as his lawyer. I do not want to be seen as his judge or anyone in the process. I want to be seen as his neighbor. I want to be seen as the same guy he will walk down the street and look for advice, because that's what I'm there for. I'm there to connect that client to organizations such as the beautiful organizations that are on this panel right now, and they're on in this Zoom with us. I want to connect them to whatever organization is available to improve his life, because I find when we improve his life, then he improves the community as well.
Yes.
I was wrongfully convicted of a homicide and sentenced to life in prison. And what I found in my wrongfully conviction, that the community as a whole didn't have say so in what went on. The community as a whole didn't have engagement in what went on. We came, including myself, we joined the proceedings as spectators. So not only do I connect with the client, I connect the community as a whole. So because they say it takes a village to raise a kid, it takes a village to raise a village. So when you include the community, when you tell the community, okay, we need this guy to go through no more. We need this guy to go through Why Not Prosper. We need him to go through Frontlines Dad. We need him job employments. This is what he has to do once a week. And I may not be able to see him, but the community can hold him accountable. And seeing that the community can hold him accountable, he is now, a lot of my clients are now people, if I lose touch with a client, or if probation loses touch with a client that we saw during the pandemic, probation has lost touch with many clients, and it was up to the Defenders Association to make that connection with them. I can now reach out to a client who is now part of the community to find the guy and bring him back to me. Not only am I talking about the community as far as the neighborhoods they're from, I'm talking about the social media communities that people have gone to, because a lot of things I can now reach out to different social media platforms and say, I need you to post this job posting. I need you to post this bulletin about clients. And now we are joined together
Come on.
to fight the criminal justice system, or not even, I don't even want to say fight the criminal justice system, because a fight is us versus them or me versus him. Join together and raising the community and the criminal justice system as a whole. Ricky Duncan talked about changing the will. I agree with that. I agree with the changing of the will, but before the will is changed, there's an organization part of it. There's the design part of it, and that's where the community becomes effective.
Come on, Hassan. Let me say this. I can't even, I wish you guys could see, I got goosebumps under my jacket, because I'm gonna tell you something. The empowerment that I have seen transform this system's awareness is tremendous. And I really wish there were more state reps, more elected officials on this call. And I did my best to say, listen to what's happening in your city. It is amazing what's happening. I want to make this a conversation. So come on, let's all get off of our unmute, because we have a lot to share here. Ruben, I remember when Michael White was arrested, I reached out to you. And he had an opportunity for bail, because in his background, even though he was charged with something very serious, if you looked at that young man as an individual, you would realize he was not a danger. You connected with people all over the country and allowed him to secure the funds to be released. From there, and I'm just going to tell this quick story so we can converse about this. From there, Mark Lamont Hill hired him. From there, many of the people in his community started to come together to piece together who he was, the human being, not just the arrest and the situation. And all of that effort, it took all of that. It took the village approach to really get a sense of justice for this young man, which does not happen all the time, with his free lawyer. Now, when you tell me that the system can't work for everybody, there's an example of how the system worked, but it took community, it took legal, it took all of that to come together. When we're talking about, Hassan, the things that you just discussed, you said, I do this for the client, I do this for the client. Many people would think that this already happened, right? How come your lawyers aren't gathering this information? How come these things are not being known? Reverend Michelle, can you talk about the epiphany you had about the types of decisions in the really closed world of information that is brought to a decision maker to make such an important decision such as that? Can you talk about what you've learned, and did it shock you to know this?
So before I got introduced to pre-entry, I really, I had Why Not Prosper. And so I was just housing the women, interviewing them at the jail or whatever. But when I got introduced to pre-entry, it started showing me a whole nother life, right? And a whole nother light. And it just was amazing how the community, like Hassan just mentioned, come together to support an individual. So when a person first go to jail, I feel like the judges have limited, the magistrates, they have limited information. They just go by how they feel in the moment. I really believe right now I'm fighting for some guidelines as to, how they set bail and, why they give them the time they do it. Like, it's so unstructured in our criminal justice system right now as it relates to jails and bail and what they give them and what they do. And so what I found that it is so powerful, right, for us to put together a plan for an individual, before they go up before the judge, because they go in with a lack of information. I'll give you an example. I went down to our early bail reviews last year, before COVID kicked off really good. And I sat there and watched the system and how they give people bail and how, they give make a decision if they're going to lower the bail. And the judges just didn't have any information. He was like, well, I don't know where they're going to live at. And, so it was Judge Pittman, and he was trying to call people and get people to say, well, where are you going to live live at and where you're going to work at. So, you know, all judges don't do that. They just hit the gavel and that's it and that's all. But I found that when we rally around an individual and we show the judges the human side of them, like the cases you mentioned, it weighs very differently in the courtroom for a judge. You know, I feel like a piece of them want to kind of let them out sometime, but they be locked in fear and they be scared. Just like right now, and it's on the table as we speak. A young lady got arrested for homicide, had a $250,000 bail. And before she could get an EBR, she bailed out.
Wait, before we use acronyms, because everybody don't know our acronyms, EBR.
EBR stands for Early Bail Review. So within the last month, a young lady was charged with a murder, a homicide, for allegedly pushing somebody down the steps, okay? And so she got a $250,000 bail. Before she got to the EBR, she bailed out. So now they want to make a clause that says everybody that get locked up for homicide do not get an opportunity to go home. And that's a lack of information that them judges have. So I felt like right away at the CAC that, hey, we need to talk about this. They need not make that across the board, because that lady sounded like she might have put somebody that was beating her, okay? And it just shouldn't be that way. But back to your point about how the community can support a person that's getting ready to go for bail or go for trial is paramount, right?
Yeah.
It is absolutely paramount. And I didn't know all of these steps that a person go through and taking the timelines that supposed to be granted, like the arraignment, the preliminary, all of this is new information. And so I'm so grateful to be part of pre-entry, and anytime I could be part of someone's plan to get home and get out of jail, you know, why not Prosper and the team and all other community partners, like we really support this initiative. It's brilliant in my eyes, right? It's really brilliant because they don't have the information that they need, and they scared of their job or their seat, and they just do something out of impulse. But when that plan is in front of their desk, it makes much, much difference. And thank you, Hassan, so much for being the one that put that plan together and call us and galvanize with us to make it happen. So yeah, that's my take on pre-entry, before and after, and how it's being super duper supported.
Thank you for that. Anybody, and you're right, fear makes policies all the time. When you're afraid, that becomes the policy. Ruben or Ricky, do you have anything to add in terms of what you realized that the system could not handle, that you were able to say, I can fill this gap and it'll work out better?
Yeah, for me, there's a lot of, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ru, go ahead.
Just really quick, you mentioned Michael White. I think that's the textbook case of community supporting a person. And actually, in my opinion, and you know this, not to, you know, whatever, but you represented him, right? So you had a 5-year attorney, and you and I talked that, you know, you and you said it meant so much to you because you could see your son. He could be your son. I have 2 young sons. In addition to just believing fundamentally that it was wrong, right, for them to, in my opinion, railroad this young man the way they tried to do it. But it was a prime example of how the community can stand up at many different levels. Some people who weren't even involved with criminal justice or pretrial or any of those things stepped up. He was involved with PYPM. That community stepped up. You mentioned Mark Lamont Hill. He stepped up. You had all these folks who were attending the trial just to give that moral support. You had the Participatory Defense Hub who gave him that support. Right, we raised the money to bail him out. So there was a lot of pieces to that puzzle that I think epitomizes what it looks like when we have community involvement at the pretrial level. The second thing I'll do is say that we had also during the pandemic, when there was challenges with getting people out of jail, you know, we partnered with the defender's office where we actually provided housing for the folks they didn't want to let go. Most recently, because of the same thing, the pandemic, you know, the chairs didn't want to transport folks who were supposed to be getting released. So, you know, we were invited to the table to provide their transportation. So these are ways that we can partner as community folk and solve some of these challenges ourselves because, like Reverend Michelle said, fear is what governs in the city. And unfortunately, when they hear 562 murders, then everything, you mentioned a hammer and nail, then every problem becomes a nail now. And the only tool they have in their disposal is that hammer of incarceration.
Oh my gosh, come on, Ruben. Ricky, you have anything to add? Because I can't even speak after that. Because Ruben just really proved the point that the system can't solve all the issues itself. And when they
Right.
can't, they err on the side of making people who should otherwise be treated more valuable than they are, people become disposable to policy, to me not wanting to lose my role, to me not wanting to be shamed in the paper. So Ricky, I mean, you know, you deal with youth that have had to either come through a lot of different systems that have failed them. And now they're exhibiting behaviors that we're continuing to punish when we didn't do the jobs that we were supposed to do when they came to these systems, DHS, whatever the schooling, whatever the misdiagnoses were. All of these systems have failed some of these kids, and now you're getting them because they're a problem. Can you give us an understanding of where you see like our system being better at making sure that we're doing everything we can to raise strong young adults?
Well, Karen, I want to just correct you on one thing, but
Okay,
we
go ahead,
don't-
correct me.
when they become a problem, because our thing is no entry over reentry. So at the end of the day, we try that early initiative intervention prevention, where though I feel like they create so much of these youth advocate organizations for the kids after they get in trouble. Our
Okay.
thing is get in front of the ball. So
I see.
we get them before they get in trouble, because a lot of our young people wind up getting in trouble because they don't got nowhere to go, because everything's made just for people that's in trouble.
Yeah, Ricky, I
So-
can't see you anymore.
Hold on, excuse me, somebody.
That's all right. Femi? All right, he'll be back. Hassan, you spoke about something that was really important. When you sat with people, you provided them someone who gave them a value, who gave them some humanity. How much do you think that matters in what you're able to do and achieve?
I think it matters. Well, I know it matters because it's about communication. It's about getting that client, each client, to be open and communicate with you. When we talk about bail, and we got to look at it as how they weigh bail, risk to society versus willingness to come to court. When you see a community come towards the person, when you see the person is volunteering for these programs and the program is set forth and the client is sitting there like, yes, that's what I need. You see him opening up about drug problems. You see him opening up about mental health problems. You see him opening up about need for therapy, parenting classes, whatever he needs, employment. When the judge sees this, his risk to society is lowered drastically. When he has an address that shows his willingness to court, it's easy because he can get the subpoenas. When he has the community support, it shows, it lessens the risk to society and shows a willingness to come to court. So all these are needed, but we cannot get through this if the client is looking at us as, I don't know if I can trust him. And despite what the attorneys feel, it's always a distrust between the client and the attorney because they are coming in. And I don't want to say every attorney, but from the clients I've asked and I've had personal conversations with, they say the interview process between an attorney, whether that be a hired attorney or a public defender or a court-appointed attorney, they say it feels like a job appointment, a job interview. So it's not like they can be free. They feel they have to give us a certain persona of themselves in order for them to get the best outcome. When I approach him as the neighbor, because I want you to be yourself. I want them to be themselves so I can try to give the best resources I can. I can try to give the best advice I can. And I find out a lot of the clients will go out into the streets. And not only will they take the resources, but their friends will come. Ricky talked about, I wrote it down because I love the line, early initiative, intervention, and prevention. A lot of the clients have friends that will reach out to me like, yo, you did this for my buddy. I know I don't have a case or nothing, but can you connect me? And that's the initiative, and that's what we want to do and get into the community. We don't want to keep fueling the criminal justice system like our vehicle at the gas station.
That's right. Ricky, I'm gonna give you a chance to jump back in. Sorry we lost you, but can you finish what you were saying? I think someone was just commenting on what you were saying and saying that you just hit a point, getting to the root cause of kids, of what's going on with kids before they get in trouble. So can you finish that sentiment?
Said no entry over re-entry, because I'd rather send a kid to Penn State than a state pen. So part of that is it's so many organizations that's being developed and being accepted as part of the restorative justice reform model, but we're not looking at the, quote unquote pre-entry, no entry model, whereas though we don't want them to get to that point, whereas though we got to re-entry them into society. We got to help them after you done gave them a strike on their record and they're already in trouble. The good thing about the diversionary program that I signed on for is that if they do this, they don't get that. It's no more court. Court never existed at that point. So try to stop them before they get, and got to go in front of the judge and go through a probationary period. And then after probationary period, it leads to trying to get your record expunged, which leads to, a process of denials, of course. So, and we like to take a holistic approach, because a lot of times kids are only responsible for what they know. So again, I'll bring up the generational curse thing. So involving the parents. And not just putting, like, I'm going to go with what Hassan said. We don't just want to put anybody in front of them to communicate with them, because success is about relationships. So at the end of the day, we make sure we get real models over role models. Real model with us is somebody that they can realistically relate to in real time, that can come with them with some real lines, that they can speak the language of the people by meeting them where they're at. So, so when I go to them, or when we go to, we make sure that we got, we got a diversified staff at No More Wiz, though. We got everything from a mom that may have lost a child to homicide. We got teenage pregnancy, moms that had teenage pregnancy, men that been to prison, men that been to college, women that been to. So, so when you come in the building, you feel comfortable. Just like Hassan just said, you don't want to feel like you're I don't want you to feel like you're in a program. I want you to feel like you're home. Yes. I want you to feel like you're amongst family. Our wraparound services, putting our arms around you, give you that hug and welcome you in the fold of what we got going on. So
can I say this? Everything that you guys are talking about is something that's so simple, but so overlooked. Treating people with humanity, which actually restores their faith, restores their hope, more so than just laying down a punitive punishment, sometimes unnecessarily. And Ricky, I appreciate everything you're saying, because the goal of pre-entry is to show people they don't have to enter the system for them to be accessible to things that are going to help improve their lives. When I was a kid, I had after-school programs, things that help improve my life, improve my understanding of who I can be and what I can be. It wasn't as dismal as what I see for some of these kids, that you can only enter the justice system to get services. So the goal is to do exactly what you're saying. Get a hold of people. Let parents have an outlet. Let parents reach out. Hassan, you were so right. Hey, you did this for my friend. Can you do this for me? Yes, you don't have to be justice involved, because I don't want you to come here. I know what it means for my communities to have you arrest free. I know what it means to have you to be able to be that next CEO, that next vice president, because one conviction will disallow you from doing that. So we cannot cut off our kids' opportunities. But when I say this, Ricky, there's a lot of kids that we saw come in this system who were in the child welfare systems, who were in, school counseling. And those systems, whatever was happening, didn't work. It didn't work. They didn't pull all those people together that you were talking about, the parents, the family, and the village. And you guys are that village that makes a difference. And people think it's just a feel-good thing. It's a difference. I can't wait till we see the stats and the understanding of how people fared out when they went through pre-entry. They got connected with you. And now they are living back in that community, arrest-free, more empowered than ever, but also knowledgeable about what's in their area. We don't have a lot of time, so I want to give you guys the space to talk about what you hope for the future. Each one of you collectively can go what you hope for the future for criminal justice reform and community engagement, because I really hope that some people go to their state reps, go to their elected officials and say, look, these folks are doing this on by a string and a nail, and they really need your support because this is working. This is keeping people away from getting involved in more, violent crime. So if we want to keep crime down, we need to be making sure we're supporting this. So Reverend Michelle, then whoever else, I'll just give you a couple minutes to just talk about what you hope to see in the future.
Thank you. And what I would love to see in the future is a more community. We talked about, yes, dealing with them before they get in trouble, right? And doing that intervention prevention. We talked about pre-entry, right? Just being supportive to them as they, have touched the system now. And then we know about re-entry after, they coming home. But I would love to see a more community-driven model if they have to touch the system, opposed to the judges touching them. Why can't we have community court? Why we can't have the community stepping up and responding to our kids? I think, our city take ownership for our kids and give them a court, just like the response network, opposed to the police showing up, then the community show up. I would love to see that on a very deep level. And then that way they never touch judges, they never touch things of that nature. So that's my hope and prayer as it relates to transformation for the city of Philadelphia.
Thank you, Reverend Michelle. Anybody next, Hassan?
I would. I agree. I would like to see a community court in each neighborhood. I don't want to just have a community court in the center, or it's about 3 sections. It's about 3 sections in West Philadelphia. I'd like to see a community court in each section. I'd like to see throughout the city community court. I would also like to see us actually gear the kids, prepare the kids for what, prepare the young adults, the 18 to 30, where they say 88.6% of the arrests last year was from African Americans. I would like, and a majority of that, more than about 60% of that, was from the people from 18 to 30. I would like to see we engage them in the local politics. I would like to see we develop programs where they can become committee members or on a lower politic level and run the polls or whatever. I would like to see them more engaged with the system than being victims of the system, than being inside the system.
That's right. Thank you, Hassan. And somebody wants your information. I just gave them your Defender email. If you have any other information you can share, can you please share that? Ruben, I want to get to you next because we don't have too much time left. So I want to get to you next.
I'll just keep it simple. More community investment. A lot of these communities been neglected for a long time. Everything from housing to education to employment to services. So we can't keep like putting lipstick on pigs and calling it Sunday dinner, right? At the end of the day, we got to make a real investment in this community and make sure the children particularly are able to thrive so we can prevent that allure of the, the shiny stuff, which leads them down that path to being involved in the criminal justice system.
Thank you for that, because they need more positive. Oh, did we lose Ricky again? Well, I hope Ricky comes back. I just want to talk about the chats. There's someone, Ricky, we got you. Ricky, if you come back on, just jump right in. Lewis said that they started a community advocate project with their local police, responding at crisis response case manager. Thank you for that, Ricky. I'm glad that you guys are doing things that are different, that are shifting the narrative, that we have to bring everybody through a certain process. Ricky, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about what you'd like to see before we close.
I'm a concur with Ruben, and don't say too much because I think everyone said enough. And it's that unification spoken word that I want it to be, whereas though when we're speaking on pre-entry, re-entry, reform, restorative justice, it's one voice. Let's chat and choose more actions over attention. Let's get together as a unified hand and come together as a family. Like I said, family always is by love, by the love of the work, by the love of the people. So coming together and more partnerships and community functions to get the word out and being a part of our people, like not just having these webinars, but getting out on these corners, getting out in these community centers and spreading the word and letting them know what's going on, because the people that we serve, to be honest with you, they're not watching these webinars. The people that we serve, we got to meet them where they're at.
That's
So
true.
let's get more, let's put more boots to the grounds,
Yeah.
more foot action.
Well, I'm glad you said that. And I hope everyone on here sees the star power in our that exists already in our communities. It was the defender's best untapped resource. I'm going to tell you, when I was a young public defender, I would be unstoppable if I had this team with me when I was going through each court case, advocating for my client to be seen as a human being and advocating for fair treatment, fair process for them. This is a game changer that I hope is not going to go anywhere, but is only going to grow. And understanding as well, and how impactful it is to everyone. But I need to give a shout out, because as much as I love these folks on the panel and the committees, I need to give a shout out to people that were part of my team in the Defender that helped make sure that the operationalizing the vision was pivotal. And that's Catherine Parker. She
Yes.
was probably one of the best hires I've ever had. No, I'm sorry.
Hey,
Yeah,
I
Hassan,
second.
my bad.
All is well.
And Kavita Goyle, who was,
Yes.
was hired to be the community liaison. When institutions that are supposed to provide service to the community do not invite the community in to be a part of that understanding, you're not going to get it all the way right. So come on, we need leaders to not be paternalistic about what they should be doing for people, but be informative and know that power is infinite when you share it with people to move and advance an objective. And so I am so happy that I had an opportunity to be a part of this. I hope that I the opportunity is there for me to continue to be a part of this growth and understanding, and community, your voices are going to raise, and the awareness of what you're doing is going to catch on. We're seeing this happen pre-entry. We're pushing this statewide, and it needs to be, because people need the opportunity. And I'd say the system needs to look at bringing people in here with a scalpel, not a net. If you catch everything, you're gonna get everything that shouldn't even be in here either. And so the system has to be more careful with what it does, because the stakes are way too high for people. So thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this panel and a
Me
part of this
too.
larger movement. And thank you for everything you do. Love you all. Reverend Michelle.
Yeah,
Hassan,
love you.
Ruben,
Thank you, guys.
All right,
You know you
yo,
guys are my
peace and
folks.
blessings. Yes.
All right.
Kier and the rest of the panel, thank you for a phenomenal job. I think, it's not I know this was a clear example and demonstration of the power and vision of community. And it is exactly what this Transforming Justice Conference is about. And, as I was listening, I've taken copious notes here and learning from each of you. So I really appreciate the opportunity to sit and do that. One thing that stood out, and Ricky Duncan talked about it, about the people that we're serving are not here on this, and we need to be, out there and be out in the community. That's absolutely right. I would also underscore the importance of this for us to come together collectively so we all know what each other's doing, and we can support one another to be able to go out in the communities and do this work even more and do it even better. So, you definitely have my support, and I think in the support of everyone else in this conference today. So thank you. Kier, thank you for your leadership in this panel, and thank you, panelists, for all the work that you're doing.